Charlotte and Anne Brontë do not merely depict female independence, they redefine it. When Jane Eyre walks away from the man she loves, she chooses her soul over her heart. When Helen Graham flees her husband, she chooses her child's future over her own reputation. In two of the most morally charged novels of the Victorian period, these sisters offer heroines whose departures are not escapes, but ethical declarations. Their heroines do not fight with speeches or protests. They resist through departure. They reject marriages that compromise their integrity. In a society where a woman's value lay in obedience, these two women say no, not because they stop loving, but because their love will not come at the cost of principle. In Jane Eyre and the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, the Brontë sisters challenge both legal structures and moral conventions surrounding women's roles in marriage. Divorce was legally inaccessible, but through spiritual and physical acts of separation, these novels construct a literary form of divorce. Conscience severing itself from oppression. Both Jane and Helen leave not only men, but the social expectations that bind them. And in doing so, they offer two distinct but intersecting visions of what it means to live with integrity as a woman, in a world that refuses to see her as whole. Helen Graham does not leave her husband out of resentment. She leaves because staying would mean passively accepting vice and exposing her child to its influence. Her flight is not framed as selfish, but as selfless. Anne Bronté's moral universe does not ask women to suffer for virtue. It asks them to act. Jane Eyre also walks away, but from a different kind of bondage, emotional entrapment. Mr. Rochester offers her love, comfort, and the illusion of equality, but without marriage. Jane refuses, not because of law or shame, but because her internal compass demands it. I will keep the law given by God, she says, sanctioned by man. Her morality is internal, personal, sacred. She leaves not for society, but for her own soul. What links Helen and Jane is not legality, but the moral clarity that says, I cannot stay where I am no longer myself. Helen paints, Jane teaches. These details matter. They are not hobbies, they are forms of self-preservation. Through work, both women achieve economic agency, however fragile. In Victorian England, where women's financial survival depended on marriage, these heroines imagine a different model, one in which a woman's labour sustains her dignity. Helen signs her artwork with a false name to protect her location. Jane becomes a governess, accepting solitude over submission. The novels show that female freedom is not a grand declaration. It is daily labour, a quiet refusal to be owned. In these novels, art and education are lifelines. They allow women not only to leave, but to survive after leaving. The moral frameworks of the two novels are distinct. Jane Eyre is guided by inward, spiritual ethics. Jane does not speak for all women. She acts for herself. Her decisions are illuminated by personal faith and a fierce sense of self-respect. She will suffer alone, but she will not betray herself. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, on the other hand, is outward-facing. Helen's journal is a testimony. It is meant to be read, judged, and believed. Her morality is not just about personal integrity. It's about exposing injustice. Where Charlotte Brontë gives us the individual conscience, Anne Brontë gives us the moral witness. Helen's flight is a social critique. Jane's is a spiritual journey. Together, they form a dual indictment. One of society's legal cruelty, the other of emotional and moral compromise. What unites Jane Eyre and the Tenant of Wildfell Hall is the radical idea that a woman's ethical duty is first to herself. Not to her husband, not to society, but to her soul, her integrity, her truth. They do not scream, they do not preach, but they walk away. And in the 19th century, for a woman to leave, not quietly, not broken, but righteously, was one of the most radical acts of all. If you enjoyed this exploration of moral courage and female independence in Jane Eyre and the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth literary analysis every week. And I'd love to hear from you. Which classic novel or character should we dive into next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. I read everyone. Your voice shapes this channel. Let's explore literature together.